If you keep wondering why you're not growing, why life feels like it's standing still, why nothing ever changes, here's the hard truth. You're lying to yourself. you, you say you want success, but your actions are lazy. You claim you want love, but you keep sabotaging every relationship. You scream that you want peace, but you keep holding on to chaos. And the worst part, you actually believe your own lies. You've convinced yourself that you're trying, that life is just hard, that you don't have time, or that people just don't understand you. But what if I told you the only person who doesn't understand you is you? You are trapped in a prison you built with your own excuses. And every day you lie to yourself, you lock that cell tighter. Lying to yourself is one of the most subtle but powerful forces holding you back from real growth. It disguises itself as protection, comfort, or even optimism, but what it actually does is lock you in a cycle of stagnation. When you lie to yourself, you're not just bending the truth, you're building a reality that doesn't exist. And every decision you make inside that false reality takes you further away from who you really are and what you're capable of becoming. You say you want to grow, but the moment real change knocks on your door, you run. Not because you're weak, but because you've trained your mind to prioritize comfort over courage. You've convinced yourself that you're making progress because it's easier to believe that than to face the fact that you're not moving at all. These aren't just harmless thoughts. They're weapons that sabotage your future. They make you feel like you're doing enough when you're not. They give you the illusion of effort without the pain of discipline. And as long as you believe them, you'll never take the steps you need to change. You want to be successful, but your actions don't match your ambition. You say you want to be great, but greatness requires sacrifice, and you're still negotiating with your comfort zone. Growth demands honesty. It demands confrontation. The danger with lying to yourself is that it becomes automatic. You don't even realize you're doing it. You've said the same things to yourself for so long that they've become a part of your identity. I'm just not that type of person. I'm too old now. Growth, real growth, is painful. It requires you to rip away every false layer you've built to protect your ego. It requires you to admit that maybe you're not doing your best. Maybe you are playing small. Maybe you are afraid. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have, and it listens to everything you tell it, even when what you're saying isn't true. The thoughts you repeat to yourself become the blueprint of your reality. Whether those thoughts are empowering or destructive, your brain doesn't filter them out. It doesn't stop to question whether what you're saying is fact or fiction. It simply accepts repetition as truth. This is why lying to yourself is so dangerous, not just emotionally, but mentally and spiritually, because every time you repeat a lie in your head, you are programming your mind to accept it, to live by it, and to build your life around it. Think about how many times you've said things like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be successful, or I always mess things up. Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you've whispered it internally during quiet moments of doubt after a failure or when comparing yourself to others. And the more you said it, the more it became familiar. The more familiar it became, the more your mind accepted it, until one day that lie wasn't just a passing thought. It became your identity. You didn't just make mistakes, you became a failure in your own eyes. You didn't just struggle in a moment, you became someone who is always struggling. You didn't just feel fear, you started to believe you were weak, all because you kept feeding your mind narratives that were never rooted in truth. What's even worse is that your mind starts to look for evidence to support whatever story you keep telling it. If you keep saying, I'm not smart, your brain starts filtering your experiences to match that belief. It ignores your successes, downplays your growth, and highlights every mistake as proof that you were right all along. If you say, I can't trust people, every betrayal or disappointment becomes amplified, while every act of loyalty or kindness fades into the background. Your mind doesn't want to be wrong. So once you tell it something repeatedly, it starts scanning your life to validate that belief, even if it's destroying you. This is why positive change is impossible if you're still feeding your mind negative programming. You can set goals, write vision boards, and declare your dreams, but if deep down you keep repeating lies like, I don't deserve this, or this is too hard for me, your mind will sabotage your efforts to protect the identity you've created. It doesn't matter how much potential you have. If your self-talk keeps convincing you that you're not worthy, the lie becomes a prison, and repetition becomes the lock that keeps you inside it. Most people don't realize how loud their inner voice is because it's been speaking the same language for years. That voice was shaped by past pain, by trauma, by the judgments of others, and by moments when you were most vulnerable. And instead of challenging that voice, you embraced it. You made it the narrator of your life. And here's the truth. Your mind is not your enemy. It's just following instructions. And if those instructions are based on lies, then you're giving your mind the wrong script. You can't expect your life to improve while your internal dialogue stays destructive. You have to rewrite the script even if it feels unnatural at first, because the same way you repeated a lie until it felt real, you can repeat the truth until it becomes your new reality. Reprogramming your mind starts with awareness. Catch yourself in the act. When you hear that inner voice say, I can't, stop and ask, is that really true? Or is that just something I've been telling myself out of fear? When you catch yourself saying, I'm not ready, dig deeper. Are you genuinely unprepared, or are you just scared of failing? The more you question your own thoughts, the more control you gain over them. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of those thoughts. And that means you have the power to change them. It takes time. It takes repetition. But the truth, when spoken often enough, can break through even the most deeply rooted lie. Start telling yourself things that align with who you want to become, not who you've been pretending to be. Speak life into your future, even if your present doesn't reflect it yet. Say, I am growing, even if you're still stumbling. Say, I am capable, even if you're afraid. Say, I am healing, even if you still feel broken. Your mind will believe what you consistently feed it. So feed it faith, feed it strength, feed it honesty, because once your thoughts begin to shift, your entire life begins to shift with them. Self-deception might seem harmless on the surface, just a small excuse here, a little denial there, but the cost is far greater than most people realize. When you lie to yourself, you aren't just avoiding discomfort, you're actively sabotaging your future. The time you spend clinging to lies is time stolen from your potential. It's time you could have used to learn, grow, heal, build, and elevate. But instead you use it to protect your ego, to hide from pain, to delay hard decisions, and to avoid confronting the parts of your life that desperately need change. And every second you spend doing that, you fall further behind the life you were meant to live. It's easy to think that small lies don't matter, telling yourself that you're okay when you're not, that things will just get better on their own, or that tomorrow you'll finally start making changes. Those don't seem like major betrayals, but they accumulate, they grow. And over time, they turn into a pattern, a way of thinking that keeps you operating in survival mode. Instead of taking control, you drift. Instead of confronting problems, you numb yourself. Instead of choosing growth, you choose escape. And all the while, the cost keeps rising The most tragic part is that many people live their entire lives this way, never realizing that the pain they feel isn't from outside forces, but from the lies they keep feeding themselves. They blame their job, their past, other people, bad luck, or timing. But deep down, there's a voice whispering what they refuse to hear. You're not being honest with yourself. And that voice doesn't go away. It stays in the background, reminding you every time you look in the mirror that something's not right, that you're not living in alignment with your truth, that you're not doing what you know you should be doing. It made that internal conflict. When your actions don't match your values, when your habits contradict your goals, when your words feel fake, that's where the real damage happens. It's the silent tension between the person you are and the person you're pretending to be. And the longer you stay in that space, the heavier it becomes. Turns into anxiety, guilt, regret, even resentment. You start to feel like a fraud, even if no one else sees it, because deep down you know you're capable of more, but you're not doing more. You know you're meant for something greater, but you're settling, and it eats at you. Slowly, quietly. Self-deception also robs you of clarity. When you're not honest about where you are, you can't figure out where you need to go. You can't fix what you won't admit is broken. You can't change what you keep justifying. And you can't rise above your struggles if you keep telling yourself they don't exist. The lie may protect you from discomfort for a while, but it also blinds you from the truth that can set you free. You stay stuck in loops, repeating the same patterns, attracting the same problems, making the same mistakes, because you're not seeing things as they really are. You're seeing them through the lens of denial. And that denial doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. When you lie to yourself, you inevitably lie to others. You show up in relationships pretending to be okay when you're not. You set expectations you can't meet. You make promises you don't have the discipline to keep. And in doing so, you hurt people who trust you, depend on you, and care about you. Your self-deception becomes a ripple that spreads through every part of your life, your career, your health, your finances, your relationships, and your self-worth. It also keeps you trapped in fear. When you lie to yourself, you're avoiding truth because it's uncomfortable, but in doing so, you allow fear to make decisions for you. Fear of failure, fear of change, fear of judgment, fear of being exposed. And when fear is in charge, you shrink. You stop taking risks, you stop dreaming big, you stay in places you've outgrown, you cling to people who drain you, you settle for routines that numb your spirit, and you call it normal because it's easier than admitting you've been playing small for far too long. But no matter how hard you try to avoid the truth, it always finds a way to surface. It shows up in the way you feel when you're alone. It shows up in the goals you've stopped chasing. It shows up in the lack of energy, the dissatisfaction, the restlessness. That's the price of self-deception. It takes away your peace, your purpose, your direction. It convinces you to trade long-term growth for short-term comfort. But that comfort is an illusion. It feels safe in the moment, but it's slowly killing your spirit, your momentum, your potential. You can't move forward while dragging lies behind you. They're too heavy. They slow you down. They blur your vision. And worst of all, they make you forget who you really are. You were born with potential, purpose, and power, but self-deception buries all of that under layers of fear, excuses, and false identities. Taking responsibility for your life is one of the hardest but most transformative things you will ever do. It's not just about acknowledging your choices. It's about owning your outcomes, your habits, your mindset, your past decisions, and everything they've created around you. Most people live their lives waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to change, waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity, or a sign that tells them it's finally time. But all that waiting does is delay the realization that what they've really been avoiding is responsibility. Because taking responsibility means looking in the mirror and admitting, if my life is a mess, I had a hand in it. And that's not easy. That level of truth is uncomfortable. It's humbling, but it's also the first step to reclaiming your power. People avoid responsibility because they associate it with blame. They think admitting fault means admitting failure, but it's not about blame. It's about control. When you take full ownership of your life, you stop giving your power away. You stop pointing fingers at your upbringing, your circumstances, your partner, your boss, your trauma, or your luck. You stop using the past as a shield to protect you from the present. You realize that while you may not have chosen everything that happened to you, you are 100% responsible for what you do next. And that shift right there is where transformation begins. So many people are stuck, not because they can't grow, but because they keep outsourcing responsibility. They keep waiting for someone else to come fix them, to understand them, to validate them, to push them. But no one is coming. No one is going to live your life for you. No one is going to carry your vision or your pain or your purpose. That's your job. And as long as you keep waiting for external forces to move your life forward, you'll stay trapped in the same place, repeating the same cycles. It's time to stop saying, this is just how I am, as an excuse to avoid growth. It's time to stop saying, I didn't have a choice, when in reality, you did. You just didn't like the discomfort that came with the better option. Taking responsibility means admitting that maybe you've been lazy, maybe you've been scared, maybe you've been inconsistent. Maybe you've been lying to yourself about how much effort you're actually putting in. And those are hard truths to face. But without them, there's no progress. Without them, you're just living in denial, expecting your life to get better while refusing to be better yourself. Responsibility isn't just about your actions. It's about your reactions. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose whether you're going to let a setback break you or build you. You can decide whether failure means the end or the beginning of a new strategy. Life isn't fair, and it never will be. But if you're waiting for fairness, you'll be waiting forever. Growth doesn't come from life being fair. It comes from you deciding that no matter what life throws at you, you're going to own your response. That mindset is power. That mindset is freedom. You can either be a victim of your life or the author of it, but you can't be both. Victims blame, complain, and stay stuck in the same story. Authors take the pen and write a new chapter. And yes, it's messy. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you'll make mistakes along the way, but at least you're moving. At least you're not living passively hoping for someone to save you. At least you're building something real instead of just surviving on excuses. One of the greatest lies we tell ourselves is that we don't have time, resources, or energy to change. But the truth is, we don't lack time, we lack commitment. We don't lack ability, we lack belief. And we don't lack opportunity, we lack fun. When you take full responsibility for where you are, those lies begin to lose their power because suddenly you're not helpless anymore. You're not waiting, you're choosing. And that choice over and over again is how people turn their lives around. People will try to comfort you by telling you it's not your fault. And maybe they're right. Maybe some of the things you've been through weren't your fault. But healing, changing, growing, that's still your responsibility. No one else can do that part for you. You can cry about it. You can be angry about it. You can wish things had gone differently, but eventually you're going to have to decide whether you're going to stay stuck in your story or rise above it. Responsibility doesn't guarantee that life will be easy. It guarantees that you'll stop wasting time pretending you're powerless. It's not about never falling again. It's about knowing that every time you do, you have the choice to get back up, and that choice belongs to you. Change doesn't begin with a new routine or a new habit. It begins with a decision to stop hiding from what you already know. Deep down, most people are aware of what's holding them back. They know when their relationship is toxic. They know when their job is draining their soul. They know when their lifestyle is out of alignment with their dreams. But instead of confronting that truth, they bury it. They stay busy, distracted, numb, pretending not to notice the quiet voice inside that keeps whispering, "This isn't it." And the longer they pretend not to hear it, the more disconnected they become. Not just from their purpose, but from themselves. Truth isn't comfortable. That's why people avoid it. It forces you to admit that the life you're living might not be the one you actually want. It forces you to confront the gap between your intentions and your actions. It forces you to stop blaming other people and start asking hard questions like, why am I still here? Or why am I tolerating this? Or what am I so afraid of losing that I'm willing to betray myself just to keep it? Those are heavy questions, but they are the gateway to growth. Because until you get honest with yourself, nothing in your life will truly change. You can buy books, watch videos, attend seminars, and write down goals. But none of that will matter if you keep lying to yourself about what's broken. Healing only begins when you admit where you're hurting. Transformation only begins when you admit where you're stuck. Progress only begins when you stop pretending everything is fine. There is no breakthrough without truth, no clarity without honesty, and no freedom without the courage to face what you've been avoiding. The truth isn't always what you want to hear, but it's always what you need. Sometimes the truth is that you're not giving your best. Sometimes it's that you're playing small because you're scared of judgment. Sometimes it's that you've been blaming others when really it's your own lack of discipline or direction. It stings. It humbles you, but it also empowers you. Because the moment you stop hiding behind stories and excuses, you start stepping into your power. You start making choices that actually reflect your values. You start cutting ties with people, habits, and environments that don't support who you're trying to become. The reason truth is so hard to face is because it usually demands a response. Once you know better, it becomes harder to keep doing the same things. Once you admit that something isn't working, staying the same becomes a conscious choice instead of an unconscious pattern. And that's terrifying. Because if you stay, you have to admit you chose comfort over courage. If you continue, you have to admit that you traded authenticity for approval. But at least now you're aware. And awareness is where real power begins. When you're honest with yourself, you start noticing all the ways you've been shrinking. All the places where fear disguised itself as logic, all the places where routine replaced purpose, all the dreams you talked yourself out of because you were scared of what people might think, and it breaks your heart a little. Not because you're broken, but because you realize how long you've been settling, how long you've been putting off the life you were meant to live just to maintain an illusion of safety. But that heartbreak is sacred. It's the first crack in the armor that's kept you numb. It's the beginning of waking up. The truth may hurt, but lies are what keep you stuck. Lies are what keep you in cycles that drain you. Lies are what make you doubt yourself, what convince you that mediocrity is your destiny. But truth, raw, painful, undeniable truth, that's what sets you free. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. You might not act on it right away. You might wrestle with it. You might resist it. But eventually, if you're honest enough, it will move you. It will push you toward change. And that's where everything begins to shift. You stop tolerating what you once accepted. You start speaking up where you once stayed silent. You begin making different choices, not because someone told you to, but because your own soul won't let you settle anymore. You might lose people. You might walk away from things you thought you needed. But what you gain is something far more valuable: alignment, peace, purpose, and a deep sense of respect for the person you see in the mirror, because you know you're no longer lying to them. Most people don't need more motivation. They need more honesty. They need to stop telling themselves that they're trying when they're really procrastinating. They need to stop saying they don't have time when what they really don't have is clarity or discipline. They need to stop acting like they don't know what to do, when the truth is they've known for a long time. They're just scared to do it. But fear isn't a reason to stop. It's a signal that you're on the edge of something meaningful. And if you can be brave enough to face your own truth, you can change anything. If you find out who you really are, then you have to start living like it. You have to let go of everything that doesn't match. That means releasing comfort zones, walking away from familiar relationships, changing careers, shifting priorities, and possibly becoming someone that others no longer recognize. That's a terrifying kind of freedom, but it's the only kind that leads to peace. Identity isn't something you inherit from others. It's something you discover. And that discovery takes courage, because once you realize who you are, you can no longer pretend you're fine being someone you're not. You can no longer keep quiet just to keep the peace. You can no longer dim your light so others feel comfortable. You start saying no more often. You start choosing yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of alignment. You stop bending your soul just to fit into rooms that were never built for you. And when you stop lying about who you